Hello. So I want to finish off talking about the puja today. I've been talking about the precepts, and there's not a lot I want to say about the last of the precepts. So I want to talk more generally about puja again from a slightly different angle than I've talked before. So, yes, at times I've had a go at writing what you might call a secular puja, which might sound a bit of a contradiction because when we do puja, we are reverencing the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. But thinking about it, what we're honouring, what we're reverencing is actually the sacred. So I want to say something about the sacred. So yes, when I've tried to write a secular puja, I'm trying to think about, well, what is really important to us? What could we value that would really improve the quality of our lives? And not everybody's going to find Buddhism. Not everybody's going to take to Buddhism, but everybody wants to find meaning in life. And everybody, in a way, can do that by appreciating the world. So what is sacred about the world? Well, I think there is sacredness in absolutely everything in the phenomenal world. Every living being, obviously, but every phenomena. And what that means to me is that there's a mysterious quality. There's things about life and about the world that we can just never explain. We know that we're going to die one day, and we don't know what happens after that. And there's no evidence that we can find that will persuade us to know what exactly happens. So if we're a Buddhist, we might have an open mind about rebirth. But for many people in the West, they don't believe in rebirth. Maybe they believe that there is nothing, that this is it, But whatever your beliefs, right now, right here, we are living in the world. And often through our selfishness, we just sort of gobble up the world in our own way. We think that we can gain happiness by basically taking what we want from the world and from other people. And so we live a life very often that is just about acquiring new things, about changing anything that we feel dissatisfied with for something that we think will satisfy us, and then we find that it doesn't. So we're on a sort of treadmill. And Buddhism teaches us through awareness to get off that treadmill and to really see the value of things. So yes, one example, I can't remember where I read it, was, a very simple example is looking at a tree. Do we see the treeness of the tree? Do we see its own being, as it were? Do we see that its sacredness, or just do we see it as a pile of logs or something that's blocking out our light? There's many ways that we see, and often we see things through our eyes of convenience, and that leads to a lack of respect. If we want to fly 6 times a year, then we'll do it without thinking about the impact on the world. So, of course, today there are a lot of people that are thinking about, saving the planet and so on. But all of us could do more. All of us could do a lot more. And it's about caring for each other and caring for the future beings that are going to be born into a world that maybe we've gobbled up in a very selfish way. So coming back to this sacredness of puja, when I've tried to do a secular puja, I've thought of all the 7 verses of the puja and thought about how does this relate more generally, without relating it to reverencing the Buddha. Well, we can reverence the world. We can have that deep respect, that deep connection. That's the important thing. Everything is dependent upon everything else. We depend on those trees, actually. We depend on the rivers and the seas. We depend on rain. We depend on the air being such that we're going to all be able to breathe well and so on. So we need to have that kind of reverence for the world, that respect. And we need, if you think of the second verse for salutation, we actually need to be able to bow down to that which is way beyond us. Like the oak trees out there, they're far older than we are. They're far, far older. And they may not have the kind of consciousness we have, but they are mysterious. They are. If you spend time in the woods or around trees, you can feel something that is other, something that is seems to have its own presence. Sorry if that sounds a bit mad, but they do. They have a presence if we're open to that. And when we go for refuge in a secular way, in a way, we're going to refuge for our own awareness, to see the value of things, to see everything as valuable. And in confession, well, we can confess to all the many ways that we don't respect the world. I'm very aware sometimes if I buy something to question, do I really need to buy this thing? So, for example, I might be quite pleased if I buy second-hand clothes because it means, well, it's one less new item that I'm buying. At least it's recycling things. But, I'm very aware there's a lot more that I could do. For example, I'm not totally vegan. And, ideally, with a fully compassionate heart, I would be. I mean, I won't go into the reasons that I'm not, but, we make choices all the time. So we're going for refuge to our awareness that we are wanting to be broader and deeper so that we might make good choices. And we confess in ways that we don't do those things. But after confession, as you know, comes rejoicing. And we do rejoice in the good done by all beings. There's a lot of good out there. And unfortunately, news usually equates with bad news. The news is not full of all the good things that are happening in the world. And there's a lot of good. A lot of good. So after that in the puja, we ask for a teaching. Well, thinking of that in secular terms, we need to be open to being taught by what the world is telling us. So, the fact that the weather is getting out of control and so on, it's telling us something. It's a teaching. The fact that we can't control this coronavirus at the moment, it's teaching us that we can't override impermanence. There's teachings all around us, very basic teachings. And at the very end of the puja, we have dedication of our merits. And that's about caring for every living being, acknowledging that we are not the centre of the universe. We are not the centre of the universe. Every living being matters as much as we do. So yes, the sacredness, the holiness is really about seeing the uniqueness of everything in the world and respecting it deeply. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Bye for now.